It's a real privilege to be asked from Reed to give this presentation to you today, and thank you so much for giving up some of your time in your incredibly busy diaries to listen to me for the next 20 minutes or so. So without further ado, let me try to pretend that I know what I'm doing with technology and share my screen with you. Okay, hopefully that's working. So today's presentation is going to be looking at the golf tourism recovery. So really, what are golfers telling us about how they're seeing golf travel over the next 12 months and beyond? So just as a little bit of a overview, to start with, I'll just give you a short introduction as to who we are, who's Sports Marketing Surveys. Then I'll jump into a little bit about the state of the market as we're currently sat. So where are things sitting as of March 2021? Then I'll jump into the latest golf tourism research that we've actually conducted before giving you a little flavour about some golf tourism segmentation that we've also analysed. So Sports Marketing Surveys is a market research agency dedicated to the sports and leisure industry with over 30 years experience. We're incredibly fortunate to work with a strong roster of clients throughout the golf industry, ranging from governing bodies through to the professional tours, manufacturers, media like magazines, TV channels, and also with several tourist boards. All of our work is designed to help our clients better understand the marketplace they're operating in and ultimately their target audience. Okay, so I'm a firm believer that data and research is only as good as the context in which it's applied. As such, before I jump into the specific golf tourism insights, I just wanted to quickly paint a picture of the current state of the golf market. Now, as you'd expect over the past decade or so, I usually start this presentation by trying to defend a lot of the negativity that's out there in the media. And specifically this last question here, can golf ever recover, is something that has dominated pretty much every discussion and every presentation I've been in for the last 10 years. However, and whilst no one would ever claim to say that COVID-19 has been positive in any way, shape or form, the truth of the matter for golf, when you look at golf participation and just the levels of play that's happening at the moment, the additional time, the benefit of safety and natural social distancing and being outdoors really has seen golf have a boom over the last 12 months. To quantify this further, we've been tracking number of rounds played in Great Britain over the last 20 years, and despite 2 lockdown periods throughout 2020 and a poor first quarter due to bad weather, actually rounds played in Great Britain were up 12% compared to 2019. And if you only looked at the period from May to the end of the year, so after the first lockdown, rounds were actually over 50% up compared to 2019. There was a very similar story in the US, and again, apart from the initial restrictions and the dip seen in April, every month for the rest of the year saw an increase in rounds played, with the year finishing about 15% up compared to 2019. And finally in Sweden, now these are just crazy numbers, but we are seeing about 43% increase in rounds played, an 11% increase in registered golfers, so golf club membership, and some actually really encouraging stats with regards to the decrease in the average age of a golfer. But most importantly, and why we're here today, is let's understand how are golfers feeling about golf travel. So our latest golf tourism research was actually conducted at the end of 2020 and start of 2021. So really over that Christmas New Year period. We had 6 core markets, so 4 European and 2 North American, and we achieved over 9,000 respondents. We covered all the topics you'd usually expect. So what holiday elements are golfers looking for? Where were they planning on going? Who were they planning on going with? When were they planning on travel and when were they planning to book? how much were they planning on spending, what are the factors that were going to influence their travel decisions, and then also how did they research and where were they going to actually place their bookings. But in this presentation, just because of time restrictions, I can't cover everything, so I'm really going to focus on their attitude to the current restrictions and how COVID may have impacted their travel plans going forwards into the future. Now, the first starting point is obviously how interested would they be to take a golf holiday, and this is looking at golf holidays in 2021. And we can see here across the board, so in the 4 European countries and America and Canada, interest in a domestic break in 2021 was incredibly high, with even the least keen market, France, here being 71%, so 7 out of 10 core golfers being interested in taking a domestic break in this year. Now, overlay that with interest for international travel, and we can see, especially in Europe, maybe not so much in the US, but especially in Europe, that interest in taking an international break this year in 2021 is again very high, with it being as high as 84% in both Sweden and Germany. Looking past 2021 to 2022 and 23, we can see that golf tourism, obviously assuming that there aren't any more restrictions and there aren't any more lockdowns, but that golf tourism really stands to be in a very positive situation, with golfers from all the major Western markets wanting to get out there, both domestically and internationally, to take golf breaks. And if you look here clearly at the top 2 markets of Sweden and Germany, got 90%, so 9 in 10 core golfers willing to take an international break to play golf in 2022 and 23. Now, in isolation, those numbers were impressive, but when we actually start then comparing it to the last time we asked whether or not someone had taken a trip, so back in 2019, and look at that across these European markets, we can see that the increase is actually even more striking. Now, we've got to be a little bit mindful here that expressions of interest are certainly different from actual doing something. But here, if we can even realize the majority of these people who are interested in traveling, then actually domestic golf travel will see a huge leap in the next couple of years. And actually looking overseas as well. Now, other than France, which has stayed relatively static, again, across Great Britain, Sweden and Germany, that rise from people who did do so back in 2019 to being interested in taking international breaks in 2021 and then 22-23 as an incredibly encouraging picture to see. Now, I've also got to refer back to context again, and obviously these are percentages, right? So if the percentages are going up from what is a current level of participation, then that's an increase, and that's a positive increase. However, if we bear in mind that at present we are seeing an increase in participation, then actually that increase is even higher. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that in 2022-23, we really will be seeing this high percentage of golfers taking traveling breaks coming from an even bigger pool of golfers in the market. Okay, so just to warn you, the next few slides are quite number heavy, but don't worry, I will make this presentation available to download at some point either during or after IGTM links. However, I just thought it would be interesting to show when golfers were planning to try to take their next golf trip. And what we can see here is really, if you're planning on selling domestic breaks or you're trying to attract that domestic golfer, then hopefully you've been marketing already, because if you look, then including those super keen people who wanted to travel in Q1, actually 50%, so half of core golfers wanted to take a domestic break by June 2021. And that actually goes up to just over 3/4 by the end of summer this year. Now, it's perhaps unsurprising there's a slight longer lead time maybe for international breaks. But even here, we can see that 40% they're not planning on actually traveling until October this year, but actually they all still want to come back to taking those breaks as soon as they can. Now, there's one thing going on a break and taking those breaks, but actually how is that expenditure? What's the economic impact going to be like from golf travel over the next 12 months? And I think it's probably fair to say that the full economic impact of the pandemic is yet to be realised. But one hope we've got for the golf industry is that typically golfers have a slightly higher disposable income, as such might not be quite as affected as many. And actually this chart really backs that up. And when you exclude those who say they're not quite sure yet, actually there's a net increase in terms of expenditure for both domestic and international breaks in the next 12 months. Now, this is a question that we have never had to ask before in previous years, but something that we really can't ignore at the moment. And that's how various COVID factors are likely to impact on a golfer's decision to travel. And from this, you can see it's really clear that there are definite concerns among golfers, which means it's absolutely vital for you to get any communications and messaging absolutely on point. So here, flexible cancellation terms, it's pretty much a compulsory, it's a must. I mean, you're going to get 70% of golfers more likely traveling by just offering flexible cancellation terms. And then the next two down really show how important it is to make it clear that your facilities, your venues are both COVID secure and safe. Looking at the last couple of factors here, now I know that obviously no one can control these particular elements, such as the rate of corona in your area or what the governments decide need to be the quarantining periods. But given the concerns and how negatively these can impact golfers and their likelihood to travel, these really are points that you need to be on top of, and you need to make sure you've got that regular dialogue with your market to allay their fears and encourage them to book with you. Looking now at just the top destinations which these golfers would like to travel to. And as it stands, all the usual suspects spring to mind here, with Spain and Portugal being two of the three in all of the European countries, and Scotland appearing very highly there for both the US and Canadian golfers, and actually there in Sweden. And finally in this section, I just wanted to touch on some of the factors that golfers are saying are important to them when deciding on where next to travel. It was also a good opportunity for me to put on a couple of pictures of my golfing homeland in Kent. So you've got Royal St George's there and the beautiful accommodation at the lodge at Prince's. But basically, no matter what market we are speaking to, the four or five key factors that everyone says that they are looking for are good climate, good quality golf courses, good accommodation, and then value for money both on and off course. However, it's really when you're trying to find those nuances and find those key elements to set one market above the other that you look at that next level down. And we can see here, this is where some of the variances start to appear. Now, I debated whether to show you this, and I'm not sure whether I'm embarrassed or sort of a little bit proud here, but we can see that British golfers, maybe unsurprisingly, value being able to drink alcohol as significantly higher than any of the other nationalities interviewed. And therefore, that is an element that you should be concentrating on, or at least not scared to mention when marketing to Brits. Conversely, both the US golfer and the German golfer are more likely to want to understand local laws and customs. And there, if you're trying to market to French golfers, it's clear that highlighting how easy your destination is to get to for them should reap rewards when trying to market to the French golfer. Okay, so golf tourism segmentation. Now, a segmentation study is really designed to group individuals, obviously in this case golfers, into clear segments based on their similarities. There are really four ways to do this, and the first of which being a geographic grouping. Now, this is very much like what we've just gone through, so understanding how individuals, golfers from a specific country or region behave similarly to others from that country, and then also different to people from other markets. There's the demographic splits, so it's understanding how men and women may differ with their golf break habits. It's understanding how a younger or an older golfer might do so, similarly with different ethnicities, different socio-economic backgrounds. So it's really trying to group those demographic elements together. Then it goes into understanding and saying, okay, so we know there's golfers from different markets, we know there's different golfers from different demographics, but actually let's start grouping them based on how they behave. Is there a similarity there, and does that lead to better marketing and better targeting? And then finally, it's the psychographic. So it's actually going that one step behind the behavior and trying to understand how it is they're thinking about things. So really targeting them at that point that they're making those decisions. So based on the 9,000 golfers that we surveyed in January and in December and January, we then actually conducted some segmentation analysis over the top of those 9,000 golfers and discovered that there were 6 key segments within golf tourism. The first of which being golf prioritizers, then value seekers, group golfers, the fourth being the best named one in my opinion, the adventurous spenders. Then we have the close to homers, and finally the general holiday makers. Now, identifying the segments is one thing, but really trying to understand how to use that data is another. And I would argue that the first key step really is to understand how these segments apply in your target markets. So, for example, if you were trying to go after the British market, then understanding that there are 4 to 5 times as many golfers who fit in the general holiday maker segment as opposed to the course prioritizer segment should really help you tailor the amount of messaging, or at least to refine and define the marketing for the British market. Alternatively, when looking at the French market, we can see that this difference between general holiday maker and course prioritizer is even more dramatic. And if you look here amongst the group golfers segment, that's now almost disappeared. So trying to push that message into the French market most likely will not result in positive return on investment. And finally, just to highlight how the differences appear across the markets, looking here into Canada, you can see that again, very, very few group golfers. But then compared to Great Britain and France, you can actually see that the course prioritizer segment has shot up somewhat, and the adventurous spender group has now become a very prominent section within the Canadian market. Now, I've mentioned context a few times in this presentation already, and I think the next thing to bear in mind once again is context, because when you look at that title, Adventurous Spenders, at least when I first looked at it, my first thoughts came to something like these. But I think we need to remember here that we are talking about golfers, and in truth, what sets an adventurous spender apart from the other segments is very simply that they are more likely to want to try a variety of different locations and countries, and they are happier to pay for this type of variety. They are a younger segment. Now again, bear in mind context, they're a younger segment in terms of golfers and younger than the other segments, and there are more females in terms of percentage within this segment than there are in the majority of the others. When we look at how they factor in different markets, as we saw from the previous slide, there's a high percentage in Canada, but if you're trying to attract German and Swedish golfers, you really need to consider this segment because they make up almost a third of golfers from those markets. So once you've defined who the segments are, then comes the fun of seeing how each segment really differs in their plans from each other. And here we can see that when compared to 2 of the other segments, the value seekers and group golfers, At the moment, adventurous spenders are the least likely to take golf holidays in 2021. So finally, what really are those elements that golfers and these different segments are looking for when they're deciding where to book their next golf break? What's going to set the adventurous spender apart from the group golfer, and what's going to attract, say, the course prioritizer ahead of the general holiday maker? Understanding the interplay of these factors is really going to set you apart from your competition and make you a more attractive proposition for these golfers. So this chart, I've split the usual importance factors chart by both the adventurous spenders and the group golfers. And we can see here that really there is a different message and different marketing that needs to be applied when you're trying to attract golfers from either segment. If you look at the group golfer, they're much more about their ease of their break. They want good accommodation and having a variety of good golf courses nearby. However, the adventurous spender is looking for that next level above that. So they do want those elements, but they're looking at wider elements as well. So they're more concerned with understanding what the food and drink is on offer as well, the climate that your venue can provide. And then also what sets them apart is that they are looking at variety. They want to visit new countries, so they want to know what else there is on offer when booking their golf break. So very simply, segmentation can help you define the market that you're trying to attract, break the golfers down into identifiable groups, and then help you tailor your messaging to them. Okay, so that was a pretty whistle-stop tour through what was an incredibly detailed survey. So if you are interested in any further information, please don't hesitate to contact me either during IGTM links or after. But by way of a quick summary, golf really does have a huge opportunity to grow at the moment. And with a bigger amount of participants, with more golfers, that means a new and larger potential market for golf tourism. It's clear that golf and domestic golf travel will be incredibly popular in 2021. But there's also a very clear pent-up demand for international travel, either later in this year, but certainly going into 22 and 23. First and foremost, we are selling to golfers here. So those key golf factors, good golf courses, accommodation, value for money and climate are still the elements that you need to promote about your venue. But at the moment, especially, understanding those safety and security concerns and offering stuff like flexible booking conditions are absolutely vital to golfers. And finally, our analysis has shown that there are 6 key segments of golfing travellers who all want something slightly different, and therefore understanding those differences, the nuances, are what will enable you to attract these golfers to come to you ahead of your competition. Many thanks for your time, and just before I go, here are my details should you wish to get in contact with me for any further information. I hope you have a fantastic remainder of IGTM links, and I can't wait to see you all in person at the Celtic Manor in October. Thank you very much.